Recording in progress.
Good morning. My name is Mike Morrice. I'm the Member of Parliament for Kitchener Centre. Really glad to be joined today by Professor Carolyn Whitzman from the University of Toronto, whose research this motion is really built off of. We're really deeply grateful to her for being here and for her work, as well as virtually Eric Phillip, the CEO of Thresholds Homes and Supports, a local affordable housing provider in my community, as well as Elizabeth May, leader of the Green Party of Canada. We're here this morning because we remain in a protracted housing crisis after 3 decades of underinvestment in affordable housing. And while most Canadians would assume that federal affordable housing dollars are going to build affordable housing, unfortunately that's just not the case the majority of the time. Because CMHC isn't using its own definition of affordable housing, which is that a maximum of 30% of Canadians' pre-tax income is spent on housing, to use as a qualifier across all of its funds. Instead, they're using at least 6 different criteria, like that housing is 80% of area median market rent, even when market rents have gone through the roof in recent years. In my community, since 2005, rents have doubled. And these weak criteria aren't even used across all the funds for any given funding pool. And so it's not rocket science. Affordable housing dollars should go to build truly affordable housing. And with the motion we're announcing this morning, Motion 170, we're echoing calls from housing experts like Dr. Carolyn Whitzman to address this. The motion aims to specifically set 2 clear income-based definitions for both deeply affordable and affordable housing, and then to require CMHC to apply these definitions consistently across all of its funds. This would then, of course, allow the federal government to better track progress against housing goals, and most importantly, take an evidence-based approach to the significant housing crisis that we are in. With that, I'll turn it now to Dr. Whitzman, followed by Eric Phillip, and then to conclude with Elizabeth May. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Morrice. From the 1940s to the 1980s, the federal government successfully created millions of homes for low and moderate income Canadians. It did so using a consistent definition of affordability. In the 1970s and 1980s, and since then, the definition has been 30% of before-tax income. That's also the international definition of affordable housing. Since the creation of the National Housing Strategy in 2017, the good news is that the federal government is back in the affordable housing sphere. The bad news is that they've lost sight of how they're going to attain the ambitious targets. The targets include reducing the number of households living in unaffordable, overcrowded, uninhabitable homes by over 500,000 households, and halving the number of people in chronic homelessness. All chronic homeless people and 80% of households that are in core housing need, in need of affordable housing, are low income. And yet, the CMHC's programs have not helped those households. Only 3.6% of homes created with the National Housing Strategy's largest program, which is now called the Apartment Construction Loan Program, has gone to low-income households, and those are only studio apartments. Only a third of the homes created through the Targeted Affordable Housing Fund have gone to low-income households. Therefore, the work done when I was at the University of British Columbia with the Housing Assessment Resource Tools Project used the CMHC's own definitions of low income moderate income, and also, unfortunately, very low income, because since the 1990s, social assistance and pensions haven't kept up with the ability to rent a room, let alone a home. We looked at housing need across Canada using those definitions. There is currently, according to work that I did for the Office of the Federal Housing Advocate, a need for 3 million homes for individuals and households available for rent at less than $1,050 a month. We need to start treating seriously how we're going to reach the targets that we have set in the National Housing Strategy. A consistent definition of affordability is the foundation for that work. Do I have anything else I want to say before I pass on the mic? The main question for housing policy is who needs what housing, where, and at what cost. Until we start asking that question, we're not going to be able to relieve the lives of millions of Canadians in unaffordable housing. Thank you.
We'll turn it now to Eric Phillip on Zoom.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. Thresholds Homes and Supports is committed to ensuring that all individuals experiencing mental health and substance use challenges in Waterloo Region and Wellington County have the ability to live in their community safely and with a sense of dignity. Too often, the conversation around affordable housing ignores the people we serve, who struggle to maintain a steady income while experiencing mental health and addiction challenges and would not be able to afford a home based on the current and existing definition of affordability. This motion has the ability to ensure that the tremendous resources dedicated by the federal government to create new homes has the highest impact where it is most needed, in supporting those too often forgotten members of our community. Thank you to MP Morrice and his team for bringing this together.
Merci tout le monde. Je suis tellement fière d'être ici avec mon collègue Mike Morrice pour dire un grand merci pour cette motion tellement importante pour la protection d'abord pour les peuples sans abri. Maintenant, on doit avoir une solution simple comme cette motion. Créer des critères unifiés pour les logements très abordables basés à la fois sur le revenu des locataires et sur leur propre définition de l'abordabilité de logement. I'm particularly grateful to Dr. Whitzman for being here and for her work in the book that's currently out that she's written is Home Truths, Fixing Canada's Housing Crisis. Certainly recommend it, and I'm pleased as a British Columbia MP that there's at least a British Columbia connection, UBC Press. Thank you very much. And to Eric Phillips from Thresholds Homes and Supports. I hope, and I do expect, that this motion will receive support from MPs across party lines. It's essential that our Minister of Housing, Sean Fraser, look at the reality that there are 6 different definitions of what affordability means operating within his programs. That certainly doesn't make sense, and it's a scandal that only 3% of what's been built as affordable housing in this country is actually affordable. So I'm grateful to Mike Morrice. Merci, Mike. Et nous sommes disponibles pour les questions en français ou en anglais. Thank you. It's time this country stepped up to face the housing crisis with consistent solutions that work for the people who need it the most. Thank you.
We will now take questions on Zoom. Nous allons maintenant prendre les questions sur Zoom. Please use the raise hand function if you want to ask a question. S'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction main levée pour poser une question. Is there something you would like to add to your statement?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'll just conclude by saying, you know, as Dr. Whitzman alluded to, back in the 1970s, it peaked at 40% of all housing starts had federal assistance attached. Of course, that has declined rapidly to the point where in Ontario, as it stands right now, 93% of all affordable homes were built before 1995. And so as the federal government gets back into building affordable housing and putting funding towards it. With this motion, we are calling on them to ensure that the dollars they allocate for so-called affordable housing, whether it's in what they call the Affordable Housing Fund, or whether it's in the Apartment Construction Loan Program, that across the board, 3.6% of funds going to those in core housing need is not sufficient. They need stronger definitions, more consistent definitions, and with this motion, we're offering them exactly that, coming from the research of housing experts like Dr. Whitzman to ensure that deeply affordable and affordable housing is prioritized across all of CMHC's programs funded by the federal government. Merci encore. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci. C'est ce qui conclut la conférence de presse.